Welcome to the Kratom Advocacy Podcast. We're here with Kelly Dunn today, and super excited to have Kelly on. Kelly is the CEO of one of the most important, widespread, prominent Kratom companies in the United States, Urbanized Botanicals. Thank you so much, Kelly, for coming on today.
Well, thank you, Lawrence.
So we've got a lot to talk about. I mainly want to talk about socially what's going on in the Kratom community right now. First of all, I want to know what got you into Kratom and how your Kratom journey started.
So this was back 12, 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
My family does wholesale distribution. So they were manufacturing trucker supplements. And we were servicing truck stores and convenience stores across the U.S. They were bottling, what were they called? Stacker 1, Stacker 2, and Stacker 3. They were caffeine, actually ephedra pills back in the day. And so I had a bit of a manufacturing background and warehousing background from the business my family was in. So I owned a couple smoke shops, and spice was just happening everywhere. And I just thought it was I saw how much money people are making, but it just seemed like the most awful thing. And so I didn't want to be involved. And then when the DEA issued the first warning about one of the ingredients from spice, JW14 or something like that, I got out of it immediately and switched over to Kratom that day. And so somebody had brought me some samples of Kratom to put in one of my shops. I tried it, and I remember standing behind the counter that first day thinking, damn, I can't ever remember feeling this good and on top of things. I need to be involved with this. So that's kind of how it started. So I started packaging some samples in my own shop and putting them out, and there we went.
Okay. And currently, do you sell anything other than Kratom, any other metabolites or alkaloids like, say, 7-OH or pseudoindoxyl?
No. We're my original background in this, once we started becoming successful, I wanted to make sure this was safe. Now we're making a living at it. Things are starting to happen. We had done our own little, we had taken Kratom, plenty of it, and everything was good. And now we're selling it, starting to make money. So now I wanted to know more. And so we started looking for Kratom research and found this article by Dr. McCurdy, New Hope for Addicts, from way back in the day. And it was about Kratom and how Kratom possibilities were going on. So we reached out to Dr. McCurdy, and no Kratom science was taking place in the United States. He had moved from Ole Miss over to the University of Florida at that time. And there was no Kratom science taking place in the U.S. So that was a bit of a problem. So that's about the same time we started the idea that, let me back up a little bit. So I'm not sure what year it was, but Georgia was the first state that I remember getting involved with in the advocacy programs where they were talking about banning Kratom. So a bunch of us, well, there wasn't a bunch of us, there was only 5 or 6 companies in the industry total at that time. We all band together and brought some people down there, and we're going to fight this thing. I brought medical doctors, and my whole team from Las Vegas and California came out there, spent $40,000 or $50,000 bringing everybody out there, getting everybody prepared and ready. And then when the hearing came, no one from our team even had a chance to speak. And so I thought, this is, there's got to be a better way. I've got such a position of I've got the advantage of seeing more than other people have here because I have access to the science community, the Kratom community now, and I just had more access than everybody else did at the time. And so I thought I needed to do something. And so that was when I decided to make a leap of faith. And that's how that came about. Sitting around one Sunday watching documentaries on Netflix, and watched a couple of Chris Bell's documentaries and watched Prescription Thugs. And I'm watching it and getting pissed off thinking we have the solution. I mean, Chris Bell's Prescription Thug lays out very prominently that there's a problem with opiates here in the U.S., and it generally starts in the doctor's office. I thought we had the solution, and so I had to meet Chris Bell, had to get this started, and that's how that journey began.
I see. And can you go more into what the day-to-day producing a leaf of faith, what that was like for you, and how the hell did you run a business and do that, because like me just doing this induces migraines sometimes. So tell me about that.
Well, obviously I had to, I had to get some other people that I trusted involved to work for me and kind of carry off a lot of the day-to-days. Leaf of Faith was originally my idea. I wanted Chris Bell to do it because it was answering his last last documentary. I thought we had the answer to it, and it followed it up perfectly. So I wanted to get Chris Bell, and that's what I wanted, and so that's what I pursued. The documentary is my idea. I funded the whole thing. I hired Chris Bell to do it, and I just knew that we would get a lot more range of it if I put it out as another Chris Bell documentary rather than trying to make it about us or me or any of that. So I tried to keep as little urban ice as I could in there with us still being in there. Obviously I spent over $1 million personally making that.
And it's been said that you're the number one Kratom vendor online. I've read it from a few sources. Concretely speaking, can you tell me why that either is so or might be so?
I mean, there was probably a time when that was true. I doubt it's true now. We've got a very strong following from A Leaf of Faith, but I doubt we're the number one online. There's some big companies out there doing big numbers.
Yeah, things are always shifting in this industry. It's every day, I wake up and it's like it's a new industry sometimes, especially lately. For example, one morning I wake up and I see I have an email, and it's Ryan Nadell of Mit 45, and he's calling this kind of summit of different prominent members of the Kratom community to do about 7OH and how should we deal with it? Is it a threat to the industry? And I wanted to know if you were at that summit. What can you discuss, whether in a limited scope or not, what happened?
I did not attend that summit, but I've also heard that it could have been a firefighter that lit the fires in Los Angeles. I mean, that's a possibility too.
I see what you're saying. Is there any way that you can expound a bit on that without getting,
for just calling a spade, Mit 45 was one of the biggest offenders out there. And for them to stand up and try to take charge seems a little disingenuous to me. But again, when I say things like that, then I'm the disgruntled competitor. They're doing quite well in the market, and God bless those guys for doing so well.
Is there anyone in this industry who could call forth such a summit without being just a tad hypocritical? And I'm not indicting anyone, but it seems like, I don't know, it just seems like it's hard to come to the table with a clean slate, so to speak. I've been contemplating this thought the last week or so as we've been talking. Kratom and narcissism are related. I'm not sure how they tie together, but they are absolutely related somehow. So back in the days when we first started working with Dr. McCurdy, I came in with a true altruistic idea that I'm just going to put the money up because I want to know where the science is going to take us. Let's let the science lead the way. I'm not in for anything. I don't give a shit about anything. For me, let's get this science on Kratom. And so I went to all the other vendors in town. I went to everyone and said, help us. Put in some money. For the first 3 or 4 years, not a soul would donate a dime. Everybody wanted to say they're for this, but they would only do it if Dr. McCurdy would spend some papers their way or endorse them personally, or it was all about, what's in it for me. And so that's been the whole problem with the Kratom industry, is you can't get two of us in the same room to say the same thing. I understand at that time we all wanted to be the entities that saved Kratom, and we were all contributing in a lot of great ways. But had we come together and worked together, we wouldn't still be talking the same sentences that we were 10 years ago. Yeah, sometimes it seems like who can flex the hardest, and I guess it's like that in any highly competitive industry. But Kratom's on the line, and people see the gold. They're like, I can make a difference. I can soak up some of the spotlight. And I'd be lying if maybe I didn't have that thought sometimes. But so maybe you're right. Maybe
I mean, I can't talk about Kratom and narcissism without including myself. So it's there's some relation there. It's crazy to me how none of us can work together. It is the damnedest thing.
Is there a way the 7OH community, the Kratom community, can come together on this and hammer out? All right, you're over here, we're over here. We're not going to market it.
We all address that every day anyways with the products that we sell. So the thing with 7OH, when it first hit, Dr. McCurdy was the first one who clued me in. He said, "Give me some 7OH." So I went out and bought him some of the 7OH tablets. We sent him down there and had him tested. Once he got through the first round of testing, he was telling me how bad he thought it was. And so I knew exactly then we'll never be involved with 7OH, because my loyalty is to the science community. That's where I spent my money. That's where my investment, that's where all my stuff has been. And so when Dr. McCurdy says, no, this is bad, I don't need any more than that. But here's the thing about 7OH, because Dr. McCurdy believes this or knows this because he's, tested it scientifically. But the rest of us just don't want 7OH or being associated with 7OH in the community because we know it's a straight agonist. We know there's all kinds of unknown compounds in there. It's synthesized, a ton of problems. But, I don't think alcohol should be marketed the way it is. I don't think you should be able to go to the grocery store and buy a 45-ounce cold beer as you walk out the door. So do our personal opinions warrant us being able to change the market or the way things are going forward? That's a tough question. The regulatory framework already exists today. I mean, we are a dietary supplement. There is a regulatory framework for dietary supplements for, bringing them into new. So the whole thing about the dietary supplements is if you've done the safety studies and know your product is safe and you have the test results to prove that, you should be able to bring it to market.
Well, I know a lot of people who, I'm neutral, but I know a lot of people who will say, works great for my pain, number one. Number two, we have a God-given right. Sometimes they say God, sometimes not. But we have a right to alter our consciousness how we would like. And if a person wishes to purchase a product like, say, the pressed tablets from a smoke shop or to order it from a reputable wholesale online vendor, then they should be able to do that. And it's nobody else's business to tell them that they can't. And all of this gunning for the illegality of 7 is because, well, the Kratom industry is threatened by its potent analgesic effects. It's, a business venture that could eclipse theirs. That's a lot to throw at you, but what do you say to all of those arguments?
I agree with you on the standpoint that, as Americans, if we want to pollute our bodies, we should have the right to do so. The problem is, as a manufacturing, entity or arm, you just cannot provide the customer with enough information on that product today to give it to them and deliver it to them safely. That's the big issue. We don't believe in the industry that you can arm that product or arm a consumer safely enough to take that product. So, but should they have a right to? Yeah, I kind of think they should have a right to also. So I'm torn between the thing also, but until I hate this, but until the bodies start stacking up, no one's going to do shit. It's been our big problem with the KCPA. I was one of the first backers. I backed the AKA, and am probably one of the primary reasons the AKA exists today. When it was just Susan Ash, she was struggling, trying to keep it going, and I was probably the number one vendor in the nation at that time, and so I funded her. I kept her going, to make sure that the AKA existed because we needed a consumer organization also. A bunch of us were working on the vendor side trying to organize ourselves. So we needed that. So we were in the formation of the original Kratom Advocacy as an entity, if you will. But I kind of got lost there.
It's okay. Not all who wander are lost. Yeah. But let's say you're Caliph Kelly, and Dr. McCurry's your vizier, and you can just wave your hand and decree, okay, you can purchase 7OH products here, but not here. How would you set that up? What would be your ideal save for 7 products?
Again, I'm wholly biased in this. I don't believe it should be in the market, and I don't believe that they can offer the safety studies to back up what they're doing. But I haven't researched it all. I'm not on the front lines, and I don't want to be in that decision-making place, honestly, because I don't feel I'm informed enough or can make an unbiased decision. Because a part of me says, yeah, they have a right to do what they want. But then the other part says, shit, we know that's not safe. But alcohol is not safe. Tobacco is not safe. Look at the American diet. There's a ton of shit going on that kills us. Nobody cares about any of that.
Okay. Some 7OH people would say, well, I took 300 milligrams and I just, fell asleep in front of the TV. Or I've been taking it regularly and I have conditions and they don't affect my conditions. They make me feel better. I've been taking it, for 2 years or whatever. It seems to me, and again, I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate because I want to keep it balanced, but it seems to me that we don't really have, speaking objectively, and I can't leave this part out, I'm seeing the addictiveness of it every day for certain personality types for sure. And I'm seeing the effects of that every day. But I've yet to see any mortality, but I'm not a scientist and my observations aren't scientific. Have you seen anything like that? Have you heard of any 7 related?
I've heard rumors, but that's all I've been is rumors. And once again, it's the same thing with the strong extracts. We're all involved in this conversation about we need to limit the serving size. We need to do this. We need to put some sort of guidelines, some sort of regulation on this to protect the public. And by so protecting the public, we protect our industry. So that's really what we're all of us that are involved in that thing are doing. We're trying to make sure we have an informed, protected customer. So our industry has some longevity.
Okay. Were you at the recent AKA KIC summit? What was discussed? How did that go, if you were?
No. Mm-hmm. I'm going to the symposium next month.
Okay, cool.
So the scientists put on Dr. McCurdy and the group put on a symposium every year. This will be the 4th year that they've done it to discuss all the latest, kratom science, kind of the consensus of what the scientists are thinking, what they'd like to see the industry, and try to provide some guidelines for the industry to go forward intelligently. Okay,
and has the legality of kratom become more or less imperiled in the last 6 months? And do you see that getting better or no?
I honestly don't know if the legal status has really changed much in the last 10 years. We put some KCPAs out there, and the KCPAs at least made kratom known. So the word kratom got on everybody's law books, but there was no teeth in it. There was no enforcement of any kind. And so they really did nothing. I mean, as I've talked to Mac a great deal about this, we have to start somewhere. We have to get kratom on the books, and we've got to build this. Like anything, we got to lay a foundation and put up the walls, and so it's a process that we have to go through as an industry. Mac is brilliant too. I love Mac Haddow.
He's kind of yelled at me before on the show, and I usually have a pretty good poker face, but I'm like, man, being in a meeting with this guy, if you piss him off, I wouldn't be cut out for that.
His mind is, for what he does, he's nothing short of genius. His mind, the boundaries and edges and the decision trees flow along legislative lines. I mean, that guy, when he's
freedom AI.
Yeah, it's incredible the way his supplement mind works. It's really incredible. I've known Mac. I've known a lot of people here. And my first conversation with Mac and Dave Herman back in the day when they were taking over the AKA from Susan was not good at all. I mean, I was yelling, cussing him out. I used some bad words a couple times.
You were cussing him out?
Yes.
Wow, how did that go?
It didn't go well, but at that time, I was really pissed that they were coming out and still allowing not for human consumption vendors to be a part of the organization. And you can't,
Fair enough.
I don't believe you can play both sides of that line. And if we're going to make this a dietary supplement and make sure it's for consumption, you can't take that money from those guys and allow them to speak. When Susan Ash had the AKA and Dave Herman and Mac Haddow were kind of taking it over, they called me right away because I was one of the big dogs at the time. And my conversation with them is Kratom for human consumption? Point blank. And they wouldn't say yes. And I was pissed. I was like, you guys got no business in this industry then. And you got none of my support if that's your position.
Okay, the AKA and the GKC trying to work together ostensibly, I think, but I know that there are some roadblocks. How's that all going in your opinion? What's your opinion of the GKC, AKA, and how do they handle things differently?
So when
Global Kratom Coalition, GKC, for the people who
when GKC when they first came out and introduced, I've known JW a long time. I met him actually at the University of Florida years ago in a meeting with Dr. McCurdy. And so I've known him very long time. Always liked him. We've been kind of personal friends. We talk on the side.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
But I don't know where they've gone now. The idea that when the global first came out, the idea was, we know we have the science to protect the leaf, the raw leaf. We can use all the science, put all our efforts together, make sure we have the leaf protected. So no matter what happens with 708 or any of this other strong extract stuff, we have the leaf protected. We can always come back and rebuild, but we've got to have that foundation. I thought that idea was brilliant, genius. I jumped on that immediately. That's what we should do. I mean, a great deal of my income comes from extracts too, but I mean, if we could have drawn a line in the sand that day and said, okay, if you have an NDIN and it's seasoned, meaning it's gone to 75 days without a response from the FDA, so you're good to go, then you can sell that extract. But my opinion was, let's get rid of the extracts and start from zero. And if you want to sell extracts, get an NDI for that. And if you don't have an NDI, you don't sell extracts. I mean, that would have cleaned up the industry right away. So I thought that was a brilliant idea. But also J.W. Ross sells an extract. Phil Freeze an extract.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the idea was brilliant. And I thought it would have saved the industry, put us all on a level playing field again, and so we get out of this game of who can make the stronger extract.
Well, I mean, there was all that controversy in Utah about Kratom and Kava products. I think it was Senator Bramble was saying there's no evidence that it's safe and it could be injurious to consumers. Do you know about that? What that was all about?
I've spoken to both of them about that. I thought we were on the same side. We're adulterating these conversations. Why? Why do we need to place blame on some bullshit conversation that didn't matter? When we're theoretically all on the same side trying to do the same thing.
Hey, it's it gets heated. It's everybody's so passionate and nobody wants to back down, especially in this industry. Narcissism
is a hell of a drug.
I think a little bit is a good survival mechanism. I think you need a healthy amount of it.
And especially running your own business, being an entrepreneur, you better believe.
For sure. Okay, so talk about being an entrepreneur. What's one thing about the Kratom industry that you maybe thought you understood, or some misconception that you've recently had dispelled, like something you thought you knew but now you're questioning?
I thought the industry was based on the ideas of health and wellness, and that's just not true. So my original thoughts about the industry were, number one, that we would all work for the same cause to save Kratom. That we would toss aside our differences and work to save Kratom. And I just believe that we would all do that. So the biggest misconception was that we all really believed in kratom and wanted to fight for kratom. But that's just not true. The one issue that I really, thought would help the industry also back in the day was having consumers or advocates, kratom advocates. I thought that was going to be such a good thing. I recruited a bunch to come work with me and, tell their stories and be part of this whole thing. I believe the kratom advocacy has been the biggest thorn in our tire. We can't keep air in the tires. A lot of that is because of the advocates. Kratom advocates never advocate kratom. I mean, they're 100% well, that's not true. Melody Woolf.
I was just thinking of her. I was about to say.
She is an absolute.
Don't talk trash about Melody. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know her that well personally, but I've just known of her and seen her working for so long. And I actually last year when I was down at University of Florida with Dr. McCurdy and those guys, I tell Dr. McCurdy, please reach out to Melody. She is somebody that we want to have involved because she processes the information properly. She puts it out to everybody, and she is a kratom advocate. I don't ever see her doing a bunch of self-serving bullshit. Typically, when the kratom advocacy first started, my thoughts were, there's a couple of us. I mean, I was the second company to be approved on AKA's GMP program. Kraken Kratom, I think, beat me 1 or 2 days. And so my thoughts at that time, okay, now we've got a couple companies that have gone through the process that we're going to shine the light on us. I'm glad I was there. And the industry is going to back us to encourage other vendors to follow that same pathway. Just did not happen. Once the GMP language became part of the vernacular, the consumer would never know whether somebody was doing anything or not. It was just 100% bullshit out there. Personally, I was a GMP trained professional from working with my family's company. And so I had that background already, but there were very, very few that were even interested. I hate that some of these companies, there's some really good mid-sized companies with a lot of integrity, and it just bums me out that advocates don't support them or shine the light on these guys instead of doing the shit they do. Well,
all those smaller vendors, do you see them surviving?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And why is that?
Because they're quality people. And they put out quality products, and they just do things right. So I know anybody that they interact with in the kratom community, especially consumers, are going to follow it. I mean, I have a whole bunch of loyal customers for those same reasons. But the guys like, Josh over, I think he's still called S&K, Josh Miller. I mean, smaller, mid-sized guy, but damn, one of the true passionate dudes, and he can't get enough light shined on him. His ex-wife Fallon is another one that just is a good operator. They're passionate about putting out the products the right way, doing the right things. I mean, the advocates should be talking positively about companies' kratom. That's what advocacy is. What they're doing, talking shit about 7OH and fighting with the KDA people is ridiculous. That's a bunch of self-serving nonsense.
KDA people. I tried to get them on the show, and they almost came on. I was like super stoked. It was like, okay, cool. But yeah, they just said that it had to be about the science of why kratom kills people. Otherwise, they couldn't talk to me. So that went out. And then there was
I actually wanted to do that test. Because that's the one thing that everybody talks about. The LD50. What's the fatal dose of this? We couldn't do it at the University of Florida because they're not allowed to do kill studies anymore. I have one set up with a school in Texas, but I just, how much is it?
College, right? Not like an elementary school, right?
Yeah, I hate it. I hate the idea that when we did the study with the dogs, we were providing the Kratom and CBD with Elizabeth Maxwell, Dr. Maxwell, when she was doing the clinical trials with dogs. Man, they killed the dogs at the end.
Oh man,
That's
awful.
I remember when we first started this, and we were talking about, how we would get the addicted rats and some of the stuff that they would do, and they're in their teeth chattering. And I'm like, God, this, we're going to light fires and become serial killers next. It's so, yeah.
Maybe we're just being experimented on by some malevolent deity. Maybe that's just the source of our suffering.
Yeah, we've got a few of them inside.
Yes, indeed. So, okay. And then there's other people I want to talk to. God, OPMS, I just feel like won't have any time for me. They never answer me. Why are they so reticent?
So, OPMS. So, for years and years, I was the only one supporting the University of Florida. And I knew I was putting in a lot of money, and it was becoming painful. And so I knew Peyton. And so I reached out to Peyton. I said, listen, why don't you come in, help clean up your image, work with the University of Florida, donate some money, donate product even. Just, they're using your product to get pure mitragynine, because they have very good science, very clean science at OPMS. Peyton is a chemist, super smart guy. Their products are super clean, super well put together. Let me back up even a little more. When Dr. McCurdy and I were first starting this quest, and we started getting the first people saying, well, Kratom killed my son, it's OPMS. Me and Dr. McCurdy are, let's fucking get that OPMS. Yeah. We're gonna get these guys. So I started buying OPMS. We sent it down there. We started testing it, and it came back that it was the cleanest Kratom that was out there. I mean, their extracts were, exceptionally clean, scientifically perfect, if you will. And so Dr. McCurdy started using OPMS products to purify mitragynine to start with, because they were further along the process than anyone else. So because of that, I was buying a lot of OPMS, sending it to Florida so Dr. McCurdy could use it. So I reached out to Peyton and I said, can you help us out here? And so I flew to Georgia, met with him, and he agreed to do so. So then a couple weeks later, Ramsey and I and a couple others met down at the University of Florida, and they went through their whole presentation with their conglomerate of companies and all the stuff they do. If and this was back a few years ago, 5 years ago, if the Kratom industry was doing $100 million a year, OPMS was doing 60 of that. The rest of us broke up the floor.
Holy shit.
They were by such a long shot, so far ahead of us in the revenue streams that it's, they left room for all of us. They left room for us when they didn't have to. They could have dominated the industry in a lot more ways. They could have been a lot more public, and they just could have been a lot more aggressive with the way they marketed and all their stuff, because their processes were well ahead of everybody else. So they allowed the rest of the industry to develop, really. So I became an OPMS distributor just because I was worried about them coming to Las Vegas and ruining my industry. So I'm like, shit, I better, keep my enemies close here. So I actually became a distributor for them, and I didn't know how good all their products were or weren't at that time. So now I'm not a distributor any longer. I'd rather compete.
Okay, yeah. So apparently some people are saying you work for the deep state or something. Why would they say that?
That I do?
Yeah. That's what they said.
That's interesting. I'm just
something about Joe Rogan, something about you give Kratom to Joe Rogan or something, or were those just hallucinations?
No. So Chris Bell, with his first documentaries, had gone on Joe Rogan. Chris and Mark Bell were good friends with, well, they're kind of friends anyway. Joe Rogan would return their text. And so we went down and we've done 2 Rogan podcasts. I got to sit in the room at the table, the second one, but he just didn't want me pushing my Kratom.
Okay, yeah.
and he didn't know me well enough to know that I wouldn't say something stupid.
You'll have to settle for me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I got to sit there and do the whole thing. We hung out. He gave us, we've been to a couple of his shows and stuff. I mean, we just got lucky with that.
Yep.
So a lot of the stuff with Chris Bell, because Chris Bell was a member of Gold's Gym in Venice. I mean, that tapped me into everybody. Michael Hearn and I became good friends. Sylvester Stallone was using our products. Sylvester and his brother Frank. And
wow, really?
Almost had Sylvester coming on, but he's like, I can't be associated with that. I can't do it. Can't do it. Can't put my name out there with it. So I mean, we had a lot of really cool people, in our corner using it. But most of them, even Michael Hearn. I mean, Michael Hearn we're still very good friends. But when Trump was president the first time, I'm telling Mike, I said, if you just go balls out Trump, you could get in front of Trump. If you were sincere and really believed and really pushed Trump, you could get a meeting with him. You could change this whole industry. I'll give you half my company. Literally, I was putting that out there. Let's get a meeting with Trump. He gives a shit. He would make a difference.
I mean, yeah. I guess it's the case with a lot of powerful people or popular people. They use Kratom, but they don't want to be associated with it. It is still kind of like even me. Like I tell people about this. Sometimes like they'll ask like my wife about it, and she has to like tell them what Kratom is, and then my friend's like, "Oh, so you have a podcast about a gas station drug?" And I'm like, "Yeah, great." Like there's still this conception like about how Kratom is just this dirty, low tier powder that cretins and degenerates consume, but like it's not like that at all. But I can never remedy that when I encounter it. It is like
the most medicinal plant that we know of.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people, but they see it in the gas stations and they see it in smoke shops and they just associate it with filth.
I've heard it. Trust me.
I don't mean to be so, like vulgar about it, but that's just, it's so unfortunate.
And there's a really dark side to Kratom because it makes people feel better. When you feel better with something, just like eating a good meal. And Americans, we just like things bigger, faster, stronger. Something tastes good, I gotta have more. But that's the issue with it. Is it lends itself to becoming problematic because it makes people feel better, and we don't have a lot of self boundaries in the United States.
I mean, at least when I was dependent on prescription painkillers, I was getting off of it using Kratom, which it did save my life. If I took too much, I would just become ill. So in a way, it's better than a lot of these other replacement substances, or even. I'm not making a medical claim, by the way. I'm not saying you should use it for that, but for me, if you have an addictive personality, you can't take 20 grams of it, or you'll throw up violently and you won't shit for a month. But
it is a shame that we can't use that anecdotal information publicly. It breaks my heart. But yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't believe that there's a better way. There's a better exit off opiates. In fact, it's almost problematic because it makes it too easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't have the suffering. You don't have the hot hand on the stove to remind you.
So I can edit this out if you don't want me saying it, but you did ayahuasca with Ryan Adele?
No, that was before Ryan came. Actually, I did it with myself, Sean, and Dalton, Parker, and 5 or 6 of his company and my whole company. We all went down to Costa Rica at the same time and spent a week doing ayahuasca together.
And that's interesting because I've done psilocybin and it definitely changed my life. But what was it like?
Incredible. I mean, I've got a background in therapy, so I've been through a lot of therapy on my own, through trainings and all the stuff that I've been through. So I particularly didn't have a lot of issues that I was going to address. I was going on more of a exploratory mission. I've done psilocybin a bunch of times, and so I wanted to find out what this magic is all about, because it has such a reputation, has all this, and people that are in the club, they're like, oh, ayahuasca, yeah, you don't know, you're not in the club. so I wanted to get my membership in and find out what the magic is all about. It's very, I believe that the effects and the where you go, pretty similar. It's got a lot of similarities to psilocybin. So it's very similar.
Okay, well, my birthday is coming up, and any gift ideas, some ayahuasca maybe would be.
When's your birthday?
No, it's October 5th. I've got a long time to go. But couldn't help but ask. So
here's one thing I will put out there to you. So a lot of things I've been because I'm a little older, so I've been preparing for the downside of what's going to happen after Kratom. And so for the last 7 years now, I bought 40 acres off grid up in Washington State, and I've been building a kind of a do-it-yourself therapy retreat place. So we are absolutely going to have some psilocybin retreats up there. Probably this year will be the first year we do it.
Wow, that sounds really cool.
I'll send you a link. I've got a group that shows you the facility. But I've been working on it a long time.
This is fantastic. Wow, that's so interesting. What are some other projects you have going on right now?
That's the biggest one. I just hate the therapy models that are out there, and the idea that it's so damn expensive, and so I came up with this idea a few years ago that if we had some off-grid property, and let's say I buy cabin kits, and we bring some people out there that want to get through, that want to get off opiates, want to get clean. I've got a therapeutic background myself to take the people through it, but good food, exercise, allow the people to improve the property, work on cabins, build cabins, and do some work around the place for a week, 2 weeks, however long you're there, and not spend thousands of dollars. Be able to work your way through rehab. So that was the original idea, and that's what I'm trying to put forth right now. We have 5 cabins up there now, and I've already got 2 more cabin kits. So I still want to do this. It's just a matter of being bold enough to pull the string and dropping in full time.
So what quality? From talking to you, you just seem like a well-rounded, successful person. Like some people I'll have on, like I'll say, okay, this person is very good at their job. They're driven, and they may have all these other wonderful qualities, but you just you seem to be a happy person, and you seem to enjoy your work. What's the key to all of your success? What quality do you attribute your success to, or qualities?
It's real basic stuff. I mean, if you go back to I can't remember his name now. Napoleon Hill. He's got his 17 rules of Think and Grow Rich. Came out in 1950. He did a series of videos, and it basically sets a person up with a set of guidelines, a set of principles and rules that if you follow, success is going to follow. And so, I haven't really done anything on my own other than incorporate other people's ideas about success into my own life, and they work really well.
So kind of like your ability to listen, because you listened to those things and implemented them.
Yeah.
Okay. What projects are you working on in your company for the future? I see you have a new product line. What was it called? It looks real pretty. It's like gold. It's
golden nectar. Yeah, we've got a few of them. Mm-hmm. So I've always shied away because Dr. McCurdy, we were always worried about serving size, limitations, and those things. And so I've been trying some different extracts and playing around with them. And now I'm just going into the stronger extracts too. That's where the market is. I've got a different company model I'm wanting to set up, because I'm wanting to get to a point where I'm not working quite as much and have somebody else kind of filling in and doing stuff. But I want to continue the brand, and I want to continue what we're doing. But we're just going to put out I really care about the quality of the product. I I see the stuff that people are putting out there, and it pisses me off, honestly. But then again, there's that disgruntled competitor, but people they put out shit, they really do.
Yeah, there's like kind of like these kick flips in the industry of like really just tricks. That one thing I've always thought was kind of a trick is like, okay, they'll say this is green Mangda, but this is white Mangda, and this is Bali. Like, I know red, white, and green. Like, I know that matters. But can you explain to me what Mangda means as opposed to Bali?
That was the first thing that we attacked. I mean, one of our first conversations with Dr. McCurdy is I'm sitting in his office and we're talking about strains. And at that time, I was doing green Malay, red Bali, and Mangda. So I had my own strains working. So we started talking about that. That's going to be our first experiment. That's going to be our first trial. Let's learn what's going on there. So then we had to find, we had to widen our access to kratom plants. And so I jumped on the internet and I was buying kratom plants from all over the world, and so we got every variety that we could from Indonesia, Thailand, and we started looking at the different strains. And there just are no strains. There's no such thing. There's one genetic plant, and the growing conditions and drying conditions change. They do things differently. And so that's what creates differences in the product. And it just kind of happens that the darker raw plant material has some specific characteristics that we all call red, but there is no science behind that at all. None.
So wait, red, green, white, there's just that is not a consistent difference either. Okay. I mean, wow.
Well, so we have a product that we call red vein Bali. It comes from one particular source, and it has a characteristics where it's just darker in color, and because it's darker in color, it's an odd thing. But that's really the only difference is the drying conditions create a different hue to the kratom when it's dried, and we just base it on that. And plus, the consumer now needs to have 3 different kinds instead of just one.
So you want to give me one book that changed your life?
One book that changed my life.
I never tell people I'm asking that either. I'm sorry.
I would honestly say one of, because it comes to mind recently, and I've listened to it so many times. Jordan Peterson's his second book.
His second book?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who like his stuff. Yeah. When I was kind of younger without a dad, I was looking at I would listen to some of his speeches.
I like the idea that we're all aware of the problems, but give people a route out, give them a clear pathway, clear markers, and Jordan's excellent at that, and he's a great storyteller. It's funny because I haven't been a very spiritual person in regards to the Bible in the past, and I listened to Jordan Peterson's explanations of the depth and layers and the meaning behind some of these biblical stories, and it's like, oh shit, that's
yeah.
I cut my nose off to spite my own face.
Just like the concept of like just bringing order to your life, and people are going to give me shit because he's not left, and I'm not talking about his politics, but like making your own bed, like starting where you originate and making that make sense, making it into a system, and then just that spreads throughout your life. Like we always try to attack our problems by going for the head when really we should be going for the root. I feel that.
Jordan's idea on hierarchies is there's a hierarchy in everything that we get involved with, whether it's kratom, whether it's a restaurant, or just any job. And there's a lot of benefit for starting at the bottom. There's a lot of benefit to that. And typically none of us like that. We want to start at the top.
I'm feeling those benefits right now. But any final parting words for the viewers about the Kratom industry? Any advice for anyone who might be watching? And by the way, to all the lawyers who are watching the show, if you've paid attention thus far, please just come talk to me. I would love to have you on the show. I would love to speak with you. I know that you've done some legal work based on some episodes, and I really want to hear about it. But getting back to the task at hand, any parting words, Mr. Dunn?
The one parting thought that I kind of want to share was, we were the second state. Nevada was the second state to have the KCPA, and I did all of that. Personally, we hired our own legal team. We hired our own lobbyists, worked with the AKA to get it done. During that process, the one thing that became abundantly clear is nobody gives a shit about Kratom in the process. It's about a legal process, and it's a bill that becomes, the bill is the thing now. So let's get that bill passed, but they don't care. They just don't give a shit about the American people and any effects on them. That's the, it's a shame, but that's the one thing that bothered me the most out of all that process is the lawmakers and legislators. They don't give a shit about Kratom.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I want to be careful here. The people who, I guess they think of the people who are using Kratom as kind of like, I don't know, lessers, like whatever, screw them, or maybe it just financially, it doesn't really affect them. Like, what could make them give a shit?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of key words that get associated with Kratom a lot that just bring, lower its value in the public conversation, I guess. And that's, addiction and felon. I mean, if those words ever come up, I mean, you're labeled, and that's all there is to it. And so Kratom is intimately linked to addiction for whatever reasons on the internet. And so it's a tough road.
Right, yep, but we're walking it together. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Hopefully it's all the bans are rescinded, and hopefully we make it and we have it in 5 years. Do you think?
It's not going anywhere. And a lot of this has to do with the new breed of vendors and manufacturers that are coming in. Like J.W. Ross, Soren Shade and these guys.
He's awesome.
The new brews, and they have great products. They're smart. It's a new breed. I mean, it's the next generation of Kratom vendor that are, they're intellects. They just know what they're doing and have a more complete vision of where this is going than we did. I mean, we were pretty rudimentary in the way we were dealing with things compared to the guys that are in there now. They're just a new level of sophistication, and they're going to carry us just fine.
As will you, Mr. Dunn. You too are an intellect, and a personality. I really appreciate your presence on the show. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time.
I didn't mention the guys over at what's that? Todd Underwood, another really really good guy that I'm so glad to see in the industry. I mean, he's brash, but damn, we need that. We need somebody that's going to stand up like that. He kind of, I like
that's
him.
going to cause some division. He's a divisive figure in the community for sure.
He's taking a lot of heat off of me, but he says the right things. He initiates the right conversations. I mean, he's got his finger on the pulse, and I love that. I love these new guys.
He brought me over to his factory and check it out. It was cool. It was cool.
Yeah. Well, when I first met Todd, we were kind of fighting on Facebook, if you will, and we're going back and forth about some stupid shit. And apparently, some people that had known me in the past had filled him in about who I was, and so he ended up hiring one of the scientists, Kirsten from.
Kirsten Smith is her name?
Yes.
Smith. Okay, I'm familiar with her.
Hired her for some work that he was doing, some clinical trials and stuff that he was doing. And I've known her for a very long time because she comes through I knew all the academics very well. And so she told Todd more of her impression of me. And then Todd actually called me and said, I just want to say I'm sorry. I didn't have proper information with you. And, he just just a real man. I love that dude.
All right. Wow. Some personal insight.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There's a lot of really good people here. You know?
For
the Mac
sure.
Haddow,
For
the
sure.
documentaries.
And half of them hate the other half. It's like all these good people, and they're just pissed at each other all the time. It's a shame that it's got to be this way. But like you said, smart, driven people, different ideas, and that dose of me.
We need a brand of Kratom called Narcissism.
Narcissists might be an interesting.
It is so funny how, I mean, that's maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we're on to something.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we could split the profits. But, Mr. Dunn, it was a pleasure having you on. Urban Ice Botanicals, Mr. Kelly Dunn, CEO, and Kratom Wizard and Wise Man. And I hope someday we can do it again. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and hope you have a good rest of your year.
To shine the light on the industry. So,
for sure. I'm having way too much fun to stop now.
Awesome.